Hey, man, I can't believe we're here. It's can't believe that it's been a long road, and I know that you guys don't know who we are, but we know who each other is, and we're actually excited to be here tonight. Really, kind of finally getting the wheels going on this first episode. So my name is Rick Gross, and I am going to be one of the hosts of the LOL podcast, and I'm here with a couple friends. Why don't you guys introduce yourself, and then we'll get into some storytelling.
All right. My name's Sarah Kate. I do a lot of things. Right now, I am currently running a bakery, and just doing some odd jobs here and there. Substitute teaching, which I love getting to do. I love getting to be with, well, I guess your kids.
Yeah.
Whenever I do that.
Ironically enough.
Yep. Funny enough. And just I'm really excited for this journey of us figuring out what it looks like to love people like Jesus, and then practicing that in our own lives a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I'm Sam Sabrone, and I'm super excited to be here too. The old LOL Live Out Love podcast is something that's been on our hearts for almost a year now. We've been brainstorming, and it's just a exciting topic, and a topic that applies to everybody. And we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves tonight, and I'm just super excited to grow and learn and become a better follower of Jesus.
Yep, and like Sarah and Sam alluded to, we're here tonight to really start a discussion and carry out a discussion on what it looks like to actually love like Jesus. Obviously there is a ton of scripture that backs up and talks through who Jesus was and in his ministry and how much he loves us and the things that he specifically told people about love. But when it comes to actually living it out, it's actually a lot harder. Even in our discussions, we've come across just how broad of a topic it is and how much of a struggle it is, because you could ask 20 different people what love is and they'll give you 20 different answers.
Absolutely.
And so we believe, though, it is an important topic, and we believe it's something that we want to hopefully equip fellow Christ followers out there with these tools and these things that they could use in their everyday lives to be conscious of the opportunities they get to share the love of Jesus, but also making sure that it's not just one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, I love people because I'm not mean to them. Like, love is an action, right? Love is something that we have to do. But yeah, and a little bit about me. So I actually work at a church. I'm in full-time ministry. I get to help people connect in the church, and I also get to lead an awesome group of young adults. My job requires that I love people. And I don't mean that in like it's on my resume or like it was on the,
Yeah.
It wasn't on the job description when I did, but like I have to. And honestly, I have to be really conscious about how I treat people, because people almost expect me at a church to be an example of Christ's love. Now, I know for me, that's something I can't do on my own. Not only is it based on the relationship that I have with Jesus and the Holy Spirit of God living in me, but it's also things like accountability and doing that kind of stuff. And one of the things that we talked about even coming into this first episode was the idea of like, oh my gosh, like we're going to be talking about this a lot. You better believe people are going to start calling us on it. And so we're realizing that that's what it looks like. But I'm already living that, because working at a church, it's kind of, there's an expectation there. And in some ways it actually is healthy, because then I kind of pause and say, wow, so what does Jesus say about this? But I know, like, for me, there's a lot of me that I have to push aside if I really want to love people well. Like, part of my personality is I love to argue, and you can ask my wife when we first got married, our arguments sounded like I was in a courtroom, and I'd be like, exhibit A, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, like, but I realized, wait a minute, like, it's not about me winning an argument with my wife. I love my wife and I care about her, so me winning an argument against her actually isn't healthy, and that's not really what Jesus calls me to do either. And so I had to do a lot of self-examination and realize, oh gosh, there's some like character things in me that prevent me, that get in the way of me loving people well. And so, a little over a year ago when Sam came to me and started talking about doing something like this, at first I was like, oh my gosh, what does this even look like? And then I was like, the fear kicked in, right? It was like, well, no, because then I'm gonna be like under a microscope, and like people are gonna like make sure I do it. And it just is interesting though. I realized that I had to have the kind of the courage and realizing, okay, God, listen, if you're calling me to this, I'm gonna trust you in it, and trust that the things that are in me that shouldn't be there, that are preventing me from loving others, can be overcome and removed by God, as I look to navigate and really be an example of Christ's love to people around me. But yeah, and it's cool how even the process has developed, because first it was Sam and I, and then I met my friend Sarah here over the summer, and things kind of worked out really well about her stepping on, and we all got to meet, and I mean, she seamlessly came into the ragtag duo of Sam and I. So we're very grateful to have Sarah here. But Sarah, what's going on with you, and what are you doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful to be here. Like Rick just mentioned, they had kind of had this idea for a while, and Rick and I had the pleasure of chaperoning a band camp together. We got to put up with the middle schoolers for a week.
Fun.
Listen, being in the trenches, it'll get you close like nothing else. And probably about a week later, I think you messaged me saying, "Hey, I've got this opportunity if you'd be interested in talking." And there was that moment of sitting with it where it was like, do I want to do a podcast about loving people, or then I get to get kind of put under the microscope, like you said?
I don't want to do the self-examination.
Right? That's uncomfortable.
I want to do that to other people.
But I wouldn't be practicing what I preach all the time if I had said, no, actually, I don't want to live the examined life. I don't want to do that. So I kind of felt like in a good way, I felt like I didn't have a choice. It just felt like a natural next step of the journey I've been on over the last few years of figuring out what it looks like to walk out the words of Jesus, and just what it actually, not what like the cute little Bible stories make it seem like, not what this cultural Christianity makes it seem like, but what is it to look at the words that Jesus said and the things that he taught and actually live that out. And I'm,
which is super easy.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Super easy.
It's the easiest thing ever.
That's it. Podcast is over.
All right, we're done.
Okay.
I hope you all have enjoyed
I guess
this.
we
Leave us
solved
a
it.
review on Apple Podcasts.
Never mind. Forget everything we said
Fun.
before this. Loving other people is the easiest thing on the planet.
Easiest thing ever. But
Take our word for it.
The whole point is that, why is it loving like Jesus wouldn't be as hard if it weren't for the loving people like Jesus? Because frankly, as someone who has been in ministry and just relates to people, I think we can all agree that sometimes people are just the worst. Myself included, I'll throw myself into that. We can be the worst, which makes loving us really hard. So yeah, I'm just excited to go on this journey of figuring that out and how it maybe gets a little less hard. I'm not going to say necessarily easier, but at least a little less hard. Sam, what about you?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you. First of all, I want to thank Rick for his friendship and for coming together on this concept, and then bringing Sarah in. And the first time I met her was awesome. I knew that she was going to be perfect for the fit, because we really needed a group of people to sit down and talk about this, because it's challenging, and it will always be challenging. And we're called to become more like Christ every day. The good answer is we're never going to get there. All we can do is keep working towards it. Oh, yeah. And when we get to eternity, that's when we're actually going to be more like Christ. But as long as we're trying to grow and learn to love, that's what was really touching my heart when I approached Rick with this topic. It was like, I really want to love other people, but I really don't at times. And it's a struggle, and I don't want to be a hypocrite. I want to be somebody that tries to live out the words I read. And I know there are areas of my life when I'm not that loving. You can even ask my wife. That's which is not good, right? Too. And you can ask my kids too. Noah's 10 and Ella's 8, and they'd say, "Dad, you're not too loving sometimes." And if I can't do that with my family or my friends, how am I going to do it with a complete stranger with different thoughts and different ideologies and that just people that just think differently than I do? So it's a really big challenge, and I'm excited to grow and learn. This group, as you can see, we don't have all the answers, nor do we act like we have all the answers. If you're looking for the expert podcast, wrong one. We're looking to learn with you, bring people on that know about topics, and really learn how to grow closer to Jesus and to God and love them, and because they loved us, we should be loving other people. And it's going to be some hard work. And we're going to have some really cool topics. And that's really why I got into this mission with these guys, is because I want to be better at this area. And I feel like we all do, whether we want to admit it or not. It's easy to say, oh yeah, I love people. But do you really love people? Yeah. And God calls us to love everyone. He doesn't say pick and choose. He doesn't say you get to decide who you get to love.
Right.
And that's the challenge too, right? It's easy to love your wife, right? But can you love the stranger that just cut you off in traffic that day and you're upset? There's a lot. So
well, and Sam, kind of piggybacking on that too, when we even look at like what Christ's love looked like, we see a picture of that, when he gathers his disciples together, they're having their last meal together pretty much. And, he knows what's coming. Like, he knows what he's about to go through. He knows what he's about to experience. And he says, this I command you, that you love one another as I have loved you. And he said that knowing that he was about to die for them on the cross. And it's wild when you think about, like, that is the type of love that he calls us to. And Sam, I love how you brought it up, that it wasn't just like, hey, I love the people that love me back, right? It's not just I love the people that are nice to me. It's like, no, like God calls us to love everyone. God calls us to lay down our lives for everyone. Mm-hmm. Strangers, enemies, like all of the above. And so that's where it gets dicey, right? Like, we've all talked about the struggles that we have. That's where it starts to get really tough. Like, how do I love the person that mistreats me? How do I love the person that mistreats others? And that's just, kind of tip of the iceberg stuff. And so we realized in the planning stages of this that there is no shortage of topics that we can talk about as it comes to loving people. Not at all. And what's really funny is as we start talking about topics, it's like topics like begat other topics, which is like, oh wait, there's like a little sub one down here too. So, we don't even know like how long we're going to do this. Like we don't know, how many episodes we're going to do. But what we do know is that this is a very important topic. Yeah. We do know that it is something that if our world knew how to love each other like Jesus loved people, that it would be a better place.
Yeah, it's transformative.
But, right. And the things that we struggle with, probably would feel different because we had people around us. And we looked at other people in a way that we wanted to show them love instead of attack them or belittle them or, make them feel less than.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, Sam mentioned that this is the journey we're all on together. We're not the podcast experts here. We're not the experts on podcasting or loving people, quite frankly. But I really like that visual of a journey because whenever we talk about how following Jesus is like a journey or like a path, I personally have always envisioned that as a hiking trail, as someone who likes to hike as much as we can in Florida.
I like that.
But the thing with a hiking trail is every now and then you'll come across a paved path if you're on the trail long enough. Sometimes it's relatively easy, it's nice, it's pretty smooth. Other times you're like, if I step to the right, I am off the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes. Or sometimes I'm going uphill for what seems like forever.
Right. And sometimes you're going downhill, but it's too steep downhill and your quads are burning and it's just hard. And I think that's a really good visual as we're doing this too. Like loving people is just a really hard trail. Sometimes you're going straight uphill and your lungs are burning and you don't know what you're doing. Other times it's flat, it's smooth, you're good. But it's a trail that we're all on together, and we're all maybe at different places in it. Mm-hmm. But we're all on it together, with the end goal being, of course, looking like Christ. But as you said, the process of sanctification, it ain't done this side. So.
And as we were brainstorming the concept, I think it was really cool how we came up with the toolbox idea, and just equipping ourselves with the right set of tools for certain situations. Because we talked about this before, if you have the wrong tool, you're not going to get what needs to be done,
right.
And you might even mess things up worse using the wrong tool.
Oh, yeah.
As a person who's done a lot of DIY projects around your house, that's a real possibility.
By the way, you don't want me to do anything. I am Bob Vila the worst. So, but yeah, pulling out the right tool and using it at the right time, and hopefully we can learn some tools in this podcast that we can use to love other people, because we do need tools. We need something tangible to help us solve these problems when we're confronted with these situations, which we're going to be confronted daily.
Yep.
And so I'm excited for the using the toolbox of love and trying to pull out the right tools and see if we can really grow closer to God and really appreciate His love for us, because that's where it all starts, right?
Yep.
He loved us. So we don't really have a choice. We're called to love other people because of the love that He gave us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's where we really got to start. We got to start with God and Jesus' love for us.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's automatic. Whether you're a
Like,
stranger, whether you're different, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right, because how we treat others is an outpouring of the love that God gives us, right? Like
Absolutely.
it's not that we're trying to muster up all of these things inside ourselves that we can then give out to others. It's that, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this love and from God and the relationship that I have in Jesus, and basically I have no other choice but to like I'm a cup overflowing with the love of God that other people can feel around me. And so, you know, the tough part is kind of navigating all that. So our hope is that, you know, over the however many episodes we do, you all journey with us, that, you know, we're going to ask for some questions sometimes. We're going to ask for some feedback. We're going to try to navigate some really tough topics. You know, one of the things that we're going to be biting off first is, how do you love people that think differently than you politically?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're coming up on
Here
some
we go.
elections here soon. And I think that, right now there's so much volatility and anger and frustration around politics. And like, how do we as Christ followers, jump into some of those conversations? Or how do we love people well that think differently than we do? Because, we all think we're right. Like, we all believe that we're right,
Yeah.
and it's not that, we have to totally agree with someone or anything else, but like, how do we do that from a biblical standpoint? So I'm excited to jump into that with you guys. Like, I think it's going to be,
Absolutely.
should be a fun and somewhat uncomfortable conversation.
Let's jump in.
Way to jump in.
Let's
And
go.
We're going in tough. It's November coming up.
That's why I brought the treats, guys.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll eat some
That's
sweet
right.
treats.
By the way,
We'll talk
Sarah
about the
is a
discomfort.
world-class baker. So you will definitely be able to, maybe taste some of her treats. If you live here locally, too, we'll tell you where to go to pick those up. But thanks for checking us out during this first episode. We hope that you come back and join us again. We're excited to take this journey with you, and make sure that you subscribe on whatever podcast channels that you're listening to. We've got a YouTube, and follow us on Instagram, because we're going to be putting out content and things that you can interact with in the coming months and weeks. Thank you again for joining us. Y'all have a good one.